Have you been looking for the perfect way to run the Exuro set to make it effective, have a lot of damage, and be a great crowd control for your teammate? This is the build right here. We ran this on Legendary. We had one striker, which you typically have on Legendary, and we had one Exuro set. And we pretty much went through the whole thing for this video. If you're really looking for a set to help crowd control in group settings, this 100% is your Legendary build you want. It's probably the best because of how the turret works. A lot of people get confused and think it's where the flame is actually hitting at the moment, but it's actually a big circle. Just think of it as a big circle. It's area effect damage, and that's how they explained it. So once you drop it, everything goes on fire. Just look at this. This is absolutely insane. And then he's just able to melt them because they can't do nothing, right? And then if there's any guys in cover or any guys who aren't getting caught on fire, then he can take care of them. And then what's crazier about this is I'm always going to have my turret back because it gets kills. It's getting kills. Look, Caesar's guard, I'm able to proc it, throw it out again, run back, and then the same thing. The big boys are gonna come out. I'm gonna put the fire on, and the same thing over and over and over. And that's what's honestly so good about the set. Everybody in the back's on fire, the big boys are on fire, and then he can just beam them down when need. And then hopefully I just stay in cover a little bit better than I was doing. But look at that. Literally just on fire. He's able to do damage. I'm able to do damage. And then we're just helping each other out. So I was able to proc that. It's just such a good support build to run. And we're doing this on Legendary, as you guys are seeing. Now I'll tell you guys, solo play, I did not have fun on this with this build at all. I think you could do open world activities if you want. I feel like this build is one of those builds that you want to run in a group, and it's definitely not perfect. And I'll tell you why, because sometimes I feel like if you place a turret too high or too low, for some reason, the guys just a little above it, depending on what kind of terrain you're fighting on, they don't get caught on fire. And it kind of was like, what is going on? I literally just placed it right next to him. The flame is hitting him, but it's weird how it works. Sometimes it doesn't work the way I think it should. But when it is working in a group setting, it's amazing. It's probably one of the best crowd controls you could throw out. I constantly had my turret up, and that's because the way I have the build set up, and I'll show you guys in a second. But I never really had to worry about it being down, maybe once or twice. But I can imagine having two of these builds and two striker builds running through legendaries. This is actually pretty fun. But let's get into the build. So I know you guys want to know, how do we have this bad boy set up? So let's dive into the build now. So the first thing we're gonna be having is we are running the Technician. This is gonna give us 10% skill damage, plus it's gonna give us one skill tier, allowing us to run one blue. Now we have the Capacitor on here. Now this one has assault rifle damage to armor and health damage, and then it has a talent that's going to give us 60% extra skill damage on our build, because shooting an enemy builds a stack up to a cap of 40. Each stack grants 1.5% skill damage. After 5 seconds, that stack decays 1 per second. Also, for every yellow skill tier we have, we get 7.5% weapon damage. Now, this always comes with crit chance, 11 rounds, crit damage, and weapon handling. And if you want as your secondary, you can run the Everlasting Gaze, and what this does is headshots grant 50% status effects damage and duration to the next status effect you apply. So that could be something that you guys want, but again, this, I think having the Capacitor going the whole time is definitely the better way to just keep that stat going. So we are running a 4-piece of the new Exuro set, and what it does is the 2-piece gives that 20% burn duration, 15% skill health, 40% burn damage, and then look what the Ortiz does. The incendiary turret spins 360. You are immune to your own incendiary turret fire. The incendiary turret explodes when disabled. So that, it's a big circle. All you have to think about it is everywhere the flame can touch, automatically is set on fire. Even if you see the flame aiming one way, everything behind it's on fire. Well, the way they set this up is it's a big area effect damage area, right? So just think of it, a big circle. If they're in that circle, they get on fire. So it has skill tier, status effects, and skill duration. Now, what I'll tell you is you don't want to put skill haste on here. You want to have your skill last the longest. So skill duration is going to be your best friend. Now, I do have the Caesar's Guard. This gives us 10% skill health, but look, we have skill tier, skill haste, which you want to have status effects. So I can gain additional 10% status effect on this build. So that means my burn damage is gonna be stronger. The burn duration is gonna be better. So you wanna have status effects on here, then have skill damage, of course, and then you wanna have skill duration right there. I don't have another skill duration max mod, so I put the skill haste. So those two you wanna change for what I just told you, and perfectly skilled. Skill kills have 30% chance to reset your skill cooldowns. And if you noticed in the gameplay, we were getting our skills back instantly, which is kind of crazy, right? Then I went with the Wyvern holster. What the Wyvern holster does, it gives us skill tier, skill damage, status effects, and then it gives us skill damage there. Now, the reason I decided to go with this over the golden piece was for the mere fact that it's going to help out my striker drone, because I want to have a little bit more skill damage on there. And the skill damage also helps the burn damage. If you swap status effects for skill damage on any piece, you'll notice they'll be exactly the same. Just go check out your turret. We go to the knee pads. We have our second piece, Exuro. We have skill damage, status effects. For our third piece, we have the gloves. We have armor. So I told you we have one armor, and we have status effects. And then for the backpack, we have skill tier, status effects, skill duration. The reason I go with the backpack, which I highly recommend, is the range you get. You get 25% extra range, so that circle gets even bigger, but then also you get 25% weapon damage to enemies set on fire by the turret. So a lot of extra damage you're getting. So for the skills, you see we have the incinerator, and what it does, we have 42-second cooldown, 35-second duration. The damage on it's almost 51,000. The burn damage is 210,000, and the burn duration is 10 seconds. If you guys notice, you guys can stack skill damage or status effects on the build, and your burn damage will go up and your regular damage will go up. Now, what changes is if you run status effects, it helps that burn duration. So just something for you to keep in mind when you are swapping those pieces out. Now, if you're gonna be running another skill, like I am running a drone, then you might wanna run a little bit more skill damage, because it's gonna help that out, right? So if you go here, we have damage, right? That's only gonna be affected by the skill damage on here. So just something for you guys to keep in mind. Do you want your turret to do more, or do you want your striker drone to do more? Ideally, I want my turret to do as much as possible, and that's why I went the way I set it up. And that right there is the build. It's probably one of my favorite ways to run this. I've ran it a lot. I tried it out on the PTS, but I didn't have anybody to play with. And now that I know how well it does with the teammate, this is definitely one of the best crowd control builds in the game. And if you want to run it on Legendary, it is very possible. As you can see, I always have my turret back. Caesar's Guard procced. It procs a lot. Sometimes I feel like it's a little bugged, but then it works as intended, and I'm having a ton of fun with it. So if you guys made it this far in the video and you guys really enjoyed it, if you guys could do me a solid, leave a thumbs up, helps out the video, and let me know, do you plan on trying it? Or what would you change and what would you like to add to the build? Let me know in the comments, guys. Hey, I'm having a fun time playing with some of these new sets. Some of them I kind of ignored, but this one, I'm definitely having a good time with it. Having this fire just burn everybody is definitely pretty good. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up here. Appreciate the support, appreciate the love. See you in the next one. Nothing but skills out.